Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, and thank you for downloading The Horse Show. This is Season 5, Episode 13, and I'm Chris Stafford. And before we hear from our guest this week, a word from our sponsors. Summer is here. You don't want to miss that majestic summer sunset, perfect wave, or family picnic because you're stuck at home with ear pain. You can make a splash at that next beach party with Highlands homeopathic earache drops and tablets for natural relief or minor fever, ear pain, and throbbing associated with earaches. After you've been diagnosed by a physician, try Highlands homeopathic earache drops or tablets. Highlands has been trusted by generations to provide safe homeopathic medicines for everyone in your family. Earache drops are available at Walgreens. To learn more, go to highlands.com/ear. That's HYLANDS, highlands.com/ear. Claims are based on traditional homeopathic practice, not accepted medical evidence, not FDA evaluated. Always read and follow label directions. My guest this week is a friend of long standing, you could say. Jane and I go back to the 60s when we first met. And I think it would be safe to say that Jane could be described as an all-round horsewoman with experience and success ranging from show ponies in the 60s to winning the silver medal at the European Championships in eventing. She credits the foundation she gained in the show pony world as the basis of her success as a rider, learning balance and an independent seat, which also stood her in good stead while racing point-to-points, which she won both as a rider and as a trainer. It was 1982 when she turned to eventing and won the Windsor 3-day event. A top 10 place at Badminton a couple of years later put her on the long list for the World Championships in Australia. In 1986, she rode on the British team in Poland and was selected for the European Championships the following year. She currently holds the record for winning the Bramham 3-day event with the same horse on 2 consecutive years. In 1988, she was reserve rider for the Seoul Olympic Games and won the prestigious Burghley 3-day event. The following year, she was the top lady rider at Chantilly 3-day event. She won the individual silver medal at the European Championships and was ranked 3rd lady event rider in the world. Jane was also a highly regarded hunter judge, officiating at most national shows, including the Horse of the Year show, and was a level 4 dressage judge. Nowadays, she's content, she says, with hacking out, swimming, and walking the dogs with her husband, Malcolm. Jane, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the programme.
Well, it's very nice to be here in virtual terms.
Yeah, exactly. We are virtual in every sense of the word these days, aren't we? How are you coping with the COVID and lockdown in England?
Well, I think, talking personally, I think we are so spoilt here. We've got space, we live in the country, we have horses, we have dogs, we have chickens. Life goes on, really. And apart from the bore of when you decide you want to nip to the shops, and it takes an awful lot longer than you normally take, for us, we are blessed, I have to say. And I think that we're so far removed from what's actually happening in the towns and the hospitals. I don't think we've got a clue really what's going on, but friends of ours, their daughter is working front line. She's a chest physiotherapist, and she's had a pretty miserable time. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that come out of it who they're never going to be the same again, quite frankly. These are the people doing the treatment because they see so many horrible things. The sun is shining here, the grass is green, the trees are green, the birds are singing, sheep grazing in the field. I mean, it's all very bucolic here. So I thank my lucky stars, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the horses, and of course, Burghley is on a lot of people's minds. You've been involved with Burghley for a number of years now, apart from winning there. And that is a major question, is whether Burghley will run, because we've seen the cancellation of so many shows. People are planning ahead, in some sports, planning ahead years now because everything's had to be rescheduled. But it would be a very strange environment riding around an event now without a crowd, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely ghastly. I mean, if you're riding to a big fence, the fact that you've got a crowd around who you like to think, well, I'm sure they are. I don't think there's anybody standing there, unless it's the water fence, somebody wishing you're falling off. But I think that the crowd lift you without a doubt. And if you talk to any rider who's ridden around a big track, the first thing they will say, oh, the crowd was amazing. And I think the London Olympics in particular, being on home ground, it was wonderful for these riders to have people clapping and cheering every inch of the way. And the bigger the track, the more you need the support of the crowd as a rider.
Yeah, it's the atmosphere that it creates. Even when you're riding it, you maybe don't notice the crowd in obviously, you're so focused, but it's the atmosphere that it creates, isn't it? That and with a big track and with a big event, it's throughout the course there. So there's not really hardly a let up, is it? Because you're coming to any fence on the course, and you're going into this. It's like a welcoming party in a way, isn't it?
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, you come round a corner to a fence, and there's just a sea of people. And in fact, when you walk the course, this is one of the things that you really have to take into account when you're looking at your line for your fences. There's no point choosing a sort of a low bush when you pick your line through a line of obstacles, because that bush will not be there when you ride round. There will be sort of 6 deep, if not more, of a sea of faces. And of course, I was lucky because I was brought up riding show ponies, and you were used to crowds. And again, the bigger the crowd, the better I rode. I had I don't know what it was, but the bigger the occasion, the more it made me lift myself. And of course, it's not always the case with the horse. You're not quite sure how your horse is going to respond to a lot of people, because those people aren't necessarily still. They're jostling and pushing, and cameras, and if it's raining, the umbrellas are bobbing up and down, and dogs barking, and so it's very much a part of a big event. And for me, it was a good part, and I was lucky that the horses I rode took no notice. But I think for some horses, I remember Mary King with King William, and he used to skittle the show jumps, and she always reckoned it was because he couldn't cope with the crowds. And he just never really looked at the fences. He just used to roll off pole after pole after pole. Whereas at home, he'd jump really well. So, who knows?
Yeah. It has its downside as well. Talking about Burghley, though, Jane, do you know at this point what the situation is there? Have they made a decision?
Well, I would think, if I were a betting person, I think it is pretty unlikely, I would have thought, because I know they've already cancelled Blenheim, which is the week after Burghley. And I think by now they will need to be getting on the course and starting to prepare things. We're soon going to be in June, and it's only a few months then till the beginning of Burghley. The amount of work that goes into a competition of that size. So I think with everything still pretty well locked down over here, I can't think the chances are very rosy. And it doesn't seem possible, really. I mean, I think that's the strange thing about this lockdown, is my diary is normally punctuated by all sorts of lovely things that happen, particularly at this time of year. And I'm secretary of our local Point to Point, and then we have our local agricultural show, and there's the Hunt Puppy Show, and loads of just annual landmarks, if you like,
Yes.
of your life. And every single one has got a red line through it. I have nothing in my diary of any certainty. Well, full stop.
Yeah.
I mean, friends of ours have a farm in Leicestershire where they do geese, and they used to do these 3-bird roasts. They do a few now, not so many, but they do about 5,000 geese. And she said, I'm really worried because if this lockdown carries on till Christmas, you know, people are not going to want their goose, and they also do loads of turkeys as well. They're not going to want their big turkey. You know, if you've got 2 people sitting together, do they want a turkey? No. So there's an awful lot of uncertainty for all of us at the moment.
Yeah, it's just going back to the eventing though, Jane. You know, when we look at these events ahead in the spring, in the fall, autumn season, it's planning ahead because it's the run up, isn't it? It's the qualification and your preparation, and it's bounced off the spring season, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, okay, everybody has, on the whole, they have fantastic facilities at home and certainly access to fantastic facilities, but you need these runs under your belt to get your eye in. You know, you've got to ride competitively to hone your skills, and you cannot do that at home. You can practice and practice, but you've got to put it into practice. And it's only by going to a competition that you get your competition nerves, if you like, and, you know, the atmosphere for the horse. So I think it would be impossible to suddenly have a horse ready to run at Burghley with just 1 or 2 runs under its belt. I mean, I don't see who can do it.
No,
you know, it's got to start somewhere, but God knows when or where.
Yes, when or where, yes. Well, we'll watch that, of course, going forward here, as we hope the season will start at some point and in the not too distant future. But Jane, I want to take a walk back down memory lane. How's that?
That's a long way.
Can we go back? Because, you know, if anyone who's not familiar with what you've done, it's so varied. It's such a broad spectrum of equestrian activities, a lifetime of equestrian activities, and success in so many different areas of equestrian sport. And I want to discuss that, Jane, because often today, and especially here in the US, we hear of young people getting into whether it be jumping or hunter jumping over here, equitation or eventing or dressage, and specializing at a very early age and never really turning left or right. Now, you began, as you mentioned earlier, with show ponies, and very successfully. You were a beautiful show pony rider, and you had great success. You had a very good start back in, if we want to say, back in the 60s, right?
Back in the 60s.
Back in the day there. How did that career come about? Because you were born and raised in Cambridge, in a university city. How did that start for you?
Well, so before showing, what really started me was riding at a local riding school. And the ponies, you couldn't possibly do it now, but in those days, they used to all be turned out on a common in Cambridge called Coldham's Common. And the highlight for we children was to be taken in a sort of series of cars, or all piled into one car. And we would catch these ponies in the field, and we would ride them bareback, ride and lead, or sometimes just ride, and we'd ride them bareback through the back streets of Cambridge back to the riding school. And I probably spent more of my time riding bareback than I did in a saddle. So that's number one. And I think we spent an awful lot of time fooling around on ponies and doing round the world and going up jumping lanes, taking our coats off and hats off and all the things you wouldn't dare do nowadays, because we've been strangled with health and safety.
Yes.
And so that was my start. And I think balance is something that some people are more naturally balanced than others, but I do think balance is something that is practice, because I always quote somebody wouldn't walk across a tightrope across Niagara Falls at their first attempt at walking on a tightrope. So if you practice balance, it gets better. And if you practice balance riding a shaggy pony bareback, and we used to do gymkhana games and just enjoy ponies for the sake of ponies. So that's number one. Anyway, then I had the chance to show ponies for Davina Whiteman, which is when I met you. And I think the fundamental balance which I'd learnt, Davina picked out, and she obviously saw that I had some talent, which I didn't know I had, but she obviously recognised I might have had. And so that's how that started. And I think that also a competitor is an interesting person, in as much as most people who are very competitive have a reason that they're very competitive. And for me, it was because my father was very ill. He'd been ill he had a brain tumor, was ill for 10 years. And this gave me a sort of determination, which, yeah, I think it was my way of overcoming the fact my father was so ill. And it may sound a bit strange, but if you talk to anybody that's hugely competitive, there's normally something lurking in the background that makes them just that little bit more hungry for something.
Yes, that's interesting. And what about sibling rivalry? Because you have two sisters, right?
Oh, well, so yeah. So I had two sisters, but they were much, much older than me. And my mother made no bones about the fact that I was definitely a mistake. But never once did I feel I wasn't wanted, but it was always a bit of a joke because I had everything new. I had a new pram, I had new everything, because Mummy had sold, after her 2.2, as she called it, everything had gone. Baby clothes, pram, you name it, it had gone. Anyway, along came me quite a bit later. And so I was almost like an only child, I suppose, because Christine and Anne was so much older than I was. So they were together, and then there was me.
Yeah.
So
you didn't feel that sibling rivalry in the sense
No.
that if you had been similar ages, you might have?
No, absolutely none. No, and they weren't, they both rode. I mean, they both got their Pony Club A test, but neither of them were as determined as me. I mean, if people said to me when I was a little girl, they used to say, "What do you want to do, Jane, when you grow up?" I'd say, "I want to have my own yard and produce young horses." And I mean, this is what I used to say when I was sort of 8 years old, riding my hobby horses around the garden. And there I was, 21, and that's what I ended up doing. Because that's what I always wanted to do. I never wanted to do anything else.
So always very focused then as a child, and clearly with your competitive ambitions too. You went in a straight line, basically.
Yeah. But within that straight line, because there wasn't any money, when my father eventually died, we had to sell the family home because in those days there were death duties between husband and wife. And if I wanted to ride, I had to earn my riding, which is where riding for Davina came in. And so, I didn't have my own pony. I always had to ride whatever was provided for me. So there's another thing, is I rode, I don't know how many different ponies, all different shapes and sizes. And I mean, God, I used to get bucked off. You remember how often I used to get bucked off on a regular basis. Riding youngsters, riding breakers, these things you didn't dare move on. And I remember there was one particular one, you just were legged up on it. You had to sit like a mouse. And then you couldn't get off it, because every time you went to lean forward and get off, it used to shoot off. I think twice it just bucked me off. It was the only way I could get off. But, you learn so much. But in these days of health and safety, would you dare put a 14-year-old child on something that was very, very tricky and was liable to dump them? The answer is no, you wouldn't.
Questionable. So the school of hard knocks, you would call it.
Oh, I think we were tough in those days. Yes.
Yeah,
that's
really
why I'm
were.
so creaky. That's why I'm so creaky now.
It eventually catches up with you, right?
There's a limit to how many bangs your body can take, I think.
Indeed. We both know that too well, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So being so ambitious and single-minded about what you wanted to do ultimately, then how did you persuade your mother or your parents at the time, then, I'm going to leave school and this is what I'm not going to go into higher education, I'm going to go and run a yard?
Well, so I did my O-levels, as they were in those days, and I then said, right, I'm leaving school. And my father at that point had died, and my mother said, well, I can't stop you. If you want to leave, I cannot stop you. She said, but you're not going to go and ride straight away. You have got to get a qualification of some sort. She said, you will go and do a secretarial course. I don't want to do a secretarial course. Well, she said, you're going to either that or I will make you stay at school one way or another. So I went to the Cambridge College of Arts and Technology, which was a complete den of vice. Anyway, I did my year's secretarial course, which I have to say came in extremely useful over the years, writing books. So I can type properly. I forgot my shorthand, but I used to be able to do quick shorthand. And so all that, a bit of accounting, all that came in handy. And then, of course, after a year, you think, why did I leave school? Really and truly, I should have stayed on. And so I then did French and German and English A-level. And again, that all came in handy. English, because I love English anyway, but the French and German, I used to go to Switzerland, teach in French, and I did one clinic in Germany in German, pidgin German a bit. But so it's interesting when you look back on your life, how the decisions you make, if you're lucky, which I was, they can come in very useful.
Yeah, it certainly. And you, at the time, you may have resented having to do that, but it did pay off. We take something from every stage of life, don't we? I'm wondering then, Jane, what you took away from your childhood before we talk about, your beginning of your professional career. What were your biggest takeaways from your childhood and the experiences you had riding show ponies particularly?
I learnt ringcraft. Davina herself would go to Germany, and so she taught me to ride classically and correctly, which she taught all of us. She taught you as well. And you learnt to ride and train a horse with no shortcuts, and you understood what genuine balance felt like when you were riding something. So I think that's what I took away. I think the feeling of riding a very, very quality, top-class animal, that's something you'll never forget. The feeling of riding something that floats. So I think when I was showing ponies, there were quite a lot of us who went on to become top event riders. It's not a coincidence that showing is a very good foundation for carrying on in the horse world. Charlotte Dujardin, she started her riding world in the showing world. Laura Collett used to do a lot of showing. So I think it's not just tittering around on pretty ponies with a sort of ribbon in your hair. It's a lot more than that. And it's learning pressure. These things were souped up to, you remember how lit up they could get, these ponies. They were electric. And if you showed any form of nerves, these ponies would pick it up like a shot. And so you had to stay calm, even if you were really nervous and really wanted to win this class. You had to have that inner calm, which you transferred to the horse or the pony. So I think that was hugely helpful when it came to the dressage side of things. And then focusing.
Pressure, of course. Yes, focusing. I'm thinking focusing pressure of top-level competition, of course. You rode at the Horse of the Year show, Dublin as well. And Royal International?
Yeah. I rode everywhere. I rode Windsor.
Windsor, of course,
I don't think I never went up to the Royal Highland, but went to Boothwells. My mother was amazing. She
Yorkshire.
lugged me all around the country.
Yeah.
It was marvelous, and the bigger the occasion, the more I enjoyed it. I loved atmosphere. So again, I was lucky that when I turned to eventing, the bigger the atmosphere, the better I rode. Whereas for other people, it can be the other way around. And I don't think that's me being. I don't think there's anything clever. It's just that's how I was.
It's a message to young people thinking that specialising is the way to go before you even turn 20. That would not be something you would recommend, I'd imagine.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when I finished showing ponies, I then went back to the lady who ran the riding school, and at that stage she had moved on. She had a girl who was eventing actually at junior level, and she had some very, very nice young horses. So I rode her young horses, I took them hunting. I then met my then husband, John, and I did a fair bit of point-to-pointing. I used to ride out for the local racehorse trainer. So apart from polo, I have covered cutting. I haven't done, quarter horse cutting, but I've done showing, show jump. Then I show jumped up to sort of national open level, which was 5 foot in the first round, 5'2" in the jump off, whatever that is in meters. Racing, dressage I did obviously. So I had a complete basis, so that when I then finally specialised in eventing, I very quickly went to the very top of the tree.
So what was it then that did decide you would focus exclusively on venting? Was it one horse?
I always wanted to show jump. So I did my bit of point-to-pointing, but I was having a lot of trouble with my back, and I knew that my body wouldn't stand the number of falls which you have to accept if you're point-to-pointing and racing. So I then had a very nice horse that we bought from Ireland as a 4-year-old that I show jumped, and he was the one I was winning grade B classes, and for me they were pretty big fences, I have to say, in the jump off, and I used to ride him at the county show level, and I always wanted to show jump. And Malcolm Para, who was one of our leading show jumpers in those days, rode in the Olympics, and he used to send me horses to school and produce. And he always said to me, Jane, he said, you'll never make it show jumping. He said, you've got to have a string of horses. He said, you want to go eventing, you'll sweep the board. No, I don't want to go eventing, I want to go show jumping. Well, you'll not make it show jumping. Go eventing. And then I was sent a horse which wasn't good enough to show jump, which I then took eventing. And that was then followed by somebody called John Huntridge, who sent me another horse to event. And that's how it all started. Yeah. So the horse he sent me, which we actually bought together, he said, I want to buy you a horse. And we went to see this horse called Marsh Heron. And within a year, I think we were third in the National Open Championships, and then Badminton the following year when we were 8th, third at Punchestown. He won Windsor, but we could never quite keep him sound enough. He could do 1 3-day event a year, but he couldn't manage the 2, the long format in those days. And then King's Jester was sent to me to school, and he ended up buying that for me to ride. So that's how I got into eventing. It wasn't because I particularly wanted to, it's because that was what I had to do this with this particular horse, and then thought, actually, jack of all trades, master of none, that's me. I'll settle for that.
Yeah. Well,
but I think
successfully too.
Well, you're only as good as the horses you ride, and I was very lucky to have these 2 top horses. They were both top horses. But I think my my strength with eventing was the experience I had from the showing for the dressage phase. I never particularly enjoyed dressage per se. I always thought if I could do it in jumping position, I'd be much happier. The cross country, I mean, I've never had a cross country lesson in my life. I just used to watch and copy how to jump these particular fences.
Cut and paste. Cut
Sorry?
and paste. Cut and paste.
Cut and paste, yeah. But in the show jumping, in all the 3-day events I did, I never went down after the show jumping. I would either hold my place or I would go up, because all the show jumping I did and the jumping big fences, coming down to jumping full foot, you know, I was pretty confident, and the horses I rode were good show jumpers as well. And I used to do a lot of show jumping with them. I didn't just event them. They would show jump as well as event. Because for me, if you can't jump sort of 4'6" that rolls down, you shouldn't be jumping 4 foot that's solid.
Quite. Yeah. Now, obviously, I've talked earlier about your success through your results eventing. It started in 82 rather, when you turned to eventing. When did you actually decide that was going to be your last event? And which way?
So I won Burghley in 88, but it was a pretty unhappy time, mostly because poor Mark Davis was killed at that event. But on a personal level, John and I were going our separate ways, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing with my life. So it was sort of bittersweet winning it. And, you know, instead of massive celebrations afterwards, I sort of went to a friend and we just sat and drank a bottle of brandy between us, really rather miserable. So the next year, when I was on my own, it was Burghley again, it was European Championships. And I'd met Malcolm, who is now my husband, and I finished second to Ginny. So I won the individual silver. And for me, it was so much happier. And I was always somebody that I would always rather be second, but feel content with how I'd done something, than win thinking I shouldn't have won that. I made a mistake. And I was a little bit of a perfectionist, I suppose. So to be second to Ginny, home crowd, Burghley, it underlined my win of the previous year. It proved to me I could do it without John, although he'd set me up to that level, of course, and I'll never forget him for that. I mean, he did a wonderful job. But it still meant I could do it. I could continue without him. And driving home in the horse box with Eric Clapton at full pelt on the radio, a bottle of champagne on the dashboard, and Malcolm sitting beside me, was probably one of the happiest journeys in a vehicle you could ever do. So it was as happy winning second as it was winning. But of course, that name on the winning board is crucial, because nobody remembers who's second. And
True. Yes.
When you walk up the avenue at Burghley, I still have to pinch myself that's my name's actually on one of those little winners' sticks.
Yeah. No one will ever take any of that away from you. And of course, that underlined another stage in your career. And you went on to do so many different other things then, is judging and officiating and writing. That's when you began your other career as an author. And you mentioned earlier about the difficult horses and ponies that you had ridden. You'd taken all the hard knocks along the way. That prompted you to write The Less Than Perfect Horse, which many people think of, they think of Jane Wallace's book. Yes, I've read that, The Less Than Perfect Horse. But you've written many other books too, haven't you?
Yes, that was my first one. I mean, that was the biggie, if you like. And I you always look back on your life and I think, well, what else have I done? I can't ski. I'm hopeless at playing tennis. I can swim, I can play bridge, but I can't play golf. So from the sporting point of view, I'm a one horse town, if you like. But when I finished that book, which was 100,000 words, I summed it up by saying that although I've dipped out on other things, it's comforting to think that having devoted your life to something, that you can churn out that number of words without recourse to a textbook. Or the only person I consulted was the vet about a horse's eyesight. I thought I needed to just get clarification on that. But otherwise, it was purely all my experience of riding different horses, and they were the teachers. They taught me, so that. And I never wanted to write a book that was sort of here today, gone tomorrow. And although it's slightly on the back shelf now, people still can go back to it. I mean, nothing changes. Training horses doesn't change, really. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to update it, but publishers aren't interested in that now. But it's what I call a good, solid book, which has stood the test of time, and that's all I wanted to do.
Well, I was told when I started writing books too, always choose subjects that have a long shelf life. Not least of all because the royalties will keep on coming years later, because we know we don't do it for the money. But they are subjects that that will never die. I mean, the subject matter, as you say, years of experience put into that, and the solid subjects too. So fast forward then to today, with all that you're doing. You mentioned that you're secretary to, and you're involved with, so many local and on a local basis. What else is on your bucket list, Jane, now?
Well, I think, I'm 67 now. I'll be 68 at the end of the year. I think I'm still very sort of active and fit. My back gives me a bit of grief. I had a new hip 2 summers ago, which is okay. I can't say it's perfect, but it's okay. I think that I love my everyday life, which is looking after this place. I mean, we've got sort of 25 acres and a sort of pond area and a wild bit of garden, and then not a massive garden, but enough to keep you pretty busy at this time of the year. And we have dogs, and I think I've moved on from being hugely competitive until you get me around the bridge table, then that all comes in again. But I embrace what I do. It's a very sociable area where we are, so we've got some great mates who aren't, nothing fancy. We're just sitting around having a chat and a drink and a laugh. It's not demanding company at all. It's just fun.
And you have 2 boys.
So 2 boys. One has just gone to Sandhurst into the army. So we haven't heard from him. I think the first few weeks were pretty hard work. And then the other one works in Norfolk, over on the east side of England. And he works for a meat company, a sort of family meat company. And he is very strong on the sustainability of where your meat is sourced. And this is all local Norfolk beef and pork and lamb. And he said that is the only way forward, to his mind, in keeping meat acceptable. Mass-produced meat from coming thousands of miles across the world, he said, is not how it should be. Source your meat locally, have it dealt with locally. That's the fairest way of doing it. So they come back. Well, certainly the one in Norfolk comes back every weekend. So that's fun, and his friends come, and we've always got young people around the place. And so, yes, I mean, I ride when I have to. I can't say that I ride a lot, but if I'm exercising, and in fact, last year we actually took a group of people to India. So you've got to keep yourself fit to do that sort of riding. And we rode the length of, not the whole of Rajasthan, but we rode for 6 days going from A to B, B to C. It was absolutely marvellous on these wild Marwari horses.
Yeah. Yes.
And absolutely loved my racing. So that's my hobby. And I'm on the board of Huntingdon, which is a local jockey club course. Of course, all that's ground to a halt at the moment, which is such a shame.
So what do you do to keep fit?
I swim. We have a little pool. So I swim every morning and then dog walk. And we walk. When we walk pretty briskly. We've got a lurcher and a terrier, and then Malcolm has got 3 spaniels. So every afternoon we probably walk for an hour, give them a good old march round. Yeah. And at this time of the year in the mornings I go poo picking. So our 2 horses that are turned out, I go and pick up all the poos. So that's another walk in the mornings.
Yeah. Keep your feet firmly on the ground. Well, I'm thinking, it all comes back to the basics, doesn't it? We're going out picking up poop. It's all where it began.
Yeah, but I love it. I mean, we go across. It's a long field with lots of sort of trees. And the other morning I was out there and I heard the cuckoo and I watched little blue tit going in and out feeding its chicks and watched the squirrel run up the tree. And so I love anything to do with sort of birds, nature. Just the world going on around you. You just have to stop and,
absolutely.
What is this life full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. And I think that's how I got to in life now.
Yeah,
I can stand and stare.
Yeah, I'm with you, and just enjoying nature and all that it brings, and especially now, I think we've come full circle in so many ways. From meat producing to the resources that we have and what we need. And I think this COVID, just to go full circle to where we began, this COVID virus has taught us a great deal about, being grateful and what we need and what we don't need, and being thankful for the resources that we have and being more self-sufficient and less greedy, dare I say.
And that's just reminded me, I've got to go and plant out my runner bean plants when we finish this.
Well, Jane, it's been lovely to chat and reflect. And I think lots of messages there for anyone listening to this. And maybe some tips on runner beans on another podcast. But when you had said, we talked earlier before we came on air about what you have experienced. You touched on it a little bit, putting your experience into 100,000 words. I'm hoping that I could get you to do the same with podcasting, to co-host with me sometime. How about that?
Well, I think that sounds rather good fun. We go back a long way, Chris.
We do. Yeah. We do indeed. And, with much the same grounding, which has set us up for who we are today. And I think that's a message to, take every experience you possibly can, whatever, type of horse or pony you have to ride, give it a go and, learn the school of hard knocks, but be grateful along the way. Yeah.
Make the best. Get the best out of an ordinary horse. That's my target. They're not all going to be superstars, but you can get them to be perfectly pleasant.
Yeah. Workable,
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But that takes hard work, and that's the bottom line, isn't it? It's jolly hard work. There's no shortcuts. You can put as many running reins on and gadgets as you like, but ultimately you get where you get to with time, patience, and effort.
That's a great message to end on. Jane, thank you very much indeed for spending time with me this week, and come back again soon. Let's do some co-hosting, and who knows what we'll do with that. We can talk to other people, we can pick a topic. So if you have any questions that you would like to send to Jane, then do drop us an email to info@wispsports.com. You can of course follow us on social media @wispsports, and of course we'd love to hear from you at any time. Hear what you would like to hear from Jane or other guests on the show too. Thanks again to our sponsors, Highlands Earache Drops. You can find them at highlands.com/ear. Until the next time, Jane, thank you. We look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thank you very much indeed.
And thank you for listening, and do stay safe until next time. Goodbye for now.